Hello and welcome to this week's Habitat Chat. We have a great topic for you. If you're not familiar with our Habitat Chats, we just began this a few weeks ago and seems like it's went over really well. And this is where we take certain habitat topics and we break them down on the smartboard. And what we're going to be talking about, well, I did want to say before I get into the topic, if you're interested in any of our Habitat Chats, our past Habitat Chats, visit our website at magnetoutdoors.com, click on Habitat Chats, and they're all there. But we got a great topic for today, and what we're going to be talking about is priorities, right? And you're probably, okay, what do you mean by priorities? Well, I think with anybody, when they get into managing their property and what they want to do and what their goals are and what they're trying to accomplish, I encourage everybody, we have to determine what our priorities are. You know, what are the most important things based on what the possibilities are with our properties and what our goals are. So that's really what the topic is today. It's going to be a lot. I do a shorter version of these for social media purposes, and the longer version is going to be much longer where I really break down a lot of different topics, but let's get right into it. So the first thing, before you set your priorities, what is the potential of my property? What is my property? What are the possibilities there, right? Because if we say, you know what, my number one goal is to shoot a big 5.5-year-old mature buck every single year in Pennsylvania. But I own 18 acres, I'm surrounded by high pressure, I have no cover. You know what, that may not be a realistic goal, right? So what we have to look at each property and what is the potential of the property. Here's a couple. I've been doing property consulting for over 6 years, and these are a couple properties that I set up. And this particular property is I think it was a 25-acre piece. Was this property right here. And let me just go here and get this out. And you can see, this was the property right here. And it was only 20 acres. And so there's only so much that we can do, and you can see we have, they have a bigger destination plot because there really wasn't a lot of food around, but then some smaller kill plots. But maybe shooting a big, 5.5-year-old buck may not be possible on this property every year. Maybe some years, but it may not be a realistic goal. Property number 2 over here. This was, I think, a 600-acre piece in Pennsylvania. And you can see we have, I think it's 12 different plots. The way we set it up, we're looking at cover, a lot of different things. But my point in all of this is based on the size of your property, the pressure, deer density, whatever it is, there's a lot of things that go into it. But you really need to determine before you set your priorities, you set your goals, what is the potential of my property? Let's get on here. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Okay. So we've determined that, okay, our property is it's big enough to do things. So now we set our goals based on what the possibilities of our property is. For me, I'm going to talk a lot about my property later on and how I set it up and what I determined the possibilities of it were. But let's set our goals. And I think that's really important for guys to understand is, one, setting realistic goals. I think too many people watch YouTube videos and they're thinking way too many things are out of whack, right? So you got to set realistic goals. For me and my property, I have a goal every year. I want to shoot at least a 4.5-year-old buck in Pennsylvania. I've shot a couple 5.5-year-olds now, but every year I'd like to be on a good 4.5-year-old deer. That's been a realistic goal for me. I've shot one of those the last 8 years. And so I'm going to, when you set your goals, now you can really look at, okay, here's the things I need to do to my property to achieve my goals. I've had clients that said, hey, I got 10 grandkids, 15 nephews, we just want to see more deer. We're going to shoot the first basket rack 6 that we see. That's a completely different goal, and that's okay. I'm not judging. Everybody's different with their property and what they want to do, but how we set that property up to achieve that goal is going to be completely different. So today, I'm going to talk a lot about my property and how I set it up and why I do the things that I do. Now, I want to say, people love to watch these videos, and you get the, I don't want to say armchair quarterbacks, but guys that have done some stuff, and they're going to pick apart some of the things I have to say. What I will say to you is there's different methods, there's different styles, but these are the things that have worked for me. And I'm going to talk specifically about those. So for me, my goal every year is a big 4.5, 5.5-year-old deer in the state of Pennsylvania. Okay, now that we've determined our goals, we got to break down a lot of other things, right? So, and this is how we're going to set our priorities. What are the things we need to do? We need to talk about what's our cover situation, what's our water like, what's thermal, do we need destination, do we need thermal cover, kill plots, how much food do we need? Now that we've determined our property can do the things that we want it to do. Now we have to figure out how are we going to set our priorities and what are the most important things. And I'm going to break these down, each one of these, in depth on our website. So if you are interested in watching more of this topic, which I'd encourage you to, because I'm really going to break these down, you can visit magnetoutdoors.com. We'll go to it and I'll show you exactly how to do it. First, before I get to that, if you're looking to set your property up, do some of the things I'm talking about. I've been doing property consulting for 6 years, really focus on the northeast part of the country, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Maryland, West Virginia, states like that. But if you're interested in taking your property to the next level, then give me a buzz at 717-304-2770 or jason@magnetoutdoors.com. And like I said before, this is a great topic. It's just way too much information to put out on a social media video. So I encourage you, come to our website. And right here, you're going to see Habitat Chat. Click on that, and you'll see a title called Priorities. And this is where I'm really going to break down all those things I just talked about. Cover, thermal, water holes. And you're going to be really surprised. I'm going to ruffle some feathers with some things I'm going to say to some people that are going to vehemently disagree with me. But I have a little bit different way. I feel like a really logical way of looking at things. So again, if you want to see more of this Habitat Chat, visit magnetoutdoors.com. Click on Habitat Chat, and I guess we'll see you on the next one. Okay, if you're still here, what I want to talk about now, and I want to break this down, and I talked about this a little bit before. What is my goal every year on my property? And I want to just lay this out right away. How you're going to manage a 1,000-acre piece compared to a 75-acre piece are two very, very different things. So what I'm going to talk about specifically is my property, which ends up all of it together is about 300 acres. And I'm going to talk about the things that I do that are specific to the size, the pressure, all those kinds of things. But it is very different. That's why I say it's good to have a guy like me, a property consult, that can really come out and look and say, okay, here's what the possibilities of your property are, right? You can have this goal, but we need to be realistic in things. So we're going to break it down. We're going to break down my property and what my goal is every year. And we talked about this, and these are some of my last bucks. These are all Pennsylvania bucks off of my property that I've had the last 15 years. And I didn't shoot a buck for the first 4 years, but now consistently, year in, year out, with all the things that I've done, I'm tracking down a pretty good buck in the state of PA. So again, I'm just going to show you my property here. So let me pull this up. My property runs, it's kind of like this, and it goes along the stream, goes over here, comes up and around here, all the way over here, and then up around here like this. Okay, so that's my property there, right? That's about 300 acres total. And you're going to see things. I'm going to break this down more and what I do and what's important when I get into each individual topics. But you'll see, I have kill plots over here, kill plots here, little kill plot here, plots here, plot there. Really kind of on the outside. And I'm going to break down my cover situation and where all my plots are at and why I put them that way. But that's just to give you an idea of my property. One thing I do want you to notice is I got a lot of ag around me. Corn, soybeans. There's corn and soybeans up here that you can't see. There's a lot of agriculture around me, which is really beneficial because I can do that kill plot strategy because those really take the browse pressure off my plots, lets them establish. When those soybeans are gone, man, they're all over my food plots. But I'm going to break that down a little bit more. But this is the property that I set up. I've been managing the last 15 years. I'm going to talk to you about why I do the things that I do. Okay. Number one, if my goal is to shoot big mature bucks every year, the number one thing, hands down, over anything, cover. They got to feel safe. They have to feel safe. And when I really got serious about doing things with my cover, I was pretty fortunate. A lot of my property is old strip mine ground, and it's just naturally grown into really super thick, gnarly, fantastic whitetail cover. But I've done some other things, to always improve the cover. But what I will tell you, when you're setting your priorities, when you're setting the things that you need to be working on, if one of your goals is to shoot mature whitetail, then this has to be a priority. There's different ways to establish cover. The number one way, when I consult on a property, the one way that I've ever seen and to do to establish the cover you want is timber stand improvement. It's doing timber harvest, doing them hard enough to get that undergrowth growing. Those are some of the best things you can do for cover, and that's a whole other habitat chat that we can break down. But when you're setting your priorities, what I would tell you, numero uno, if you want to hold big mature bucks, then you better make sure you have good cover, because they're going to go where the best cover is and where they feel the safest. Again, so I want to break down and talk about my cover situation and what my property looks like. So let me draw this again. It comes along like this. Here. All right, so I map this out. I got a kill plot here. I got a little kill plot in here. I got a small kill plot right in here. Here I have a small kill plot. Got some food plots in here. Got a food plot down here. Got a food plot right here. So that's kind of laying out some of my food plots and stuff. Now I want to break down where the cover is, right? So we've worked really hard, and a lot of it was naturally there. But right here is just super thick, gnarly, nasty, even up into here is just as thick and all. I mean, it's fantastic cover. We don't ever go in it. But you can see, I think you can see what my strategy was I'm hunting the outsides of it, right? I'm hunting the outskirts of this, getting these deers, they're coming, there's corn and soybeans over here, there's corn and soybeans over here, but these deer will come up out of here into these little kill plots on their way to those destination food sources. So how you set up your cover, think of it like you don't want to go into your cover. So if you're looking at strategically having cover in certain places, try to set it up that you can have food sources to pull those deer out of the cover, that you're never going to have to go in it. That's one of the best lessons I ever learned, was when I stayed out of the woods in the cover. Just get out. So you want to set it up and you can see, man, I don't ever have to go through here. I can access this from here, this one from here, this one I come up from here. I don't have to go through the cover at all to ever get to any of my food plots. And those big mature bucks just feel safe in there. The other thing, I've shot 2 of my biggest bucks right in this plot right here, and all this over here, even though it's not on mine, is super thick and gnarly and nasty. And you can see I'm on the outskirts of it. Same thing over here. This is all super thick cover. Great deer bedding. And I've shot my big 163 there. I shot pushing a 150 there this year. This thick cover, and again, I'm on the outskirts of it. I'm never walking through it. I'm letting those big bucks feel safe. So I know this is a squiggly mess, but the point being is, when you're looking at it, cover's the number one thing you can do, but go into it with a logical outlook. Say, okay, if I'm looking at improving my cover, where do I want to improve it? And I have the opinion, and a lot of guys might disagree with me on this. I see guys from the Midwest feel differently about these than I do. I hear guys in the Midwest say you can never have too much food. I would disagree with that. Like, my thing is, I always want to kill deer. So I feel like when you have too much food, sometimes it gets hard to maybe pin those big mature bucks down. When you have strategic locations, smaller plots, that's just my wheelhouse, right? And I'm able to do that because of all the surrounding ag. And so that won't work for everybody, but it definitely works for me on this particular property. So again, just showing you this so you get an idea of where I've really worked on improving my cover and then strategically putting those food sources. Food. All right, so that's the next question. We talked about cover being number one, for big bucks. But then it comes down to food, and you have to look at a lot of different things. We have a high deer density from where I'm at in Pennsylvania. Like a lot of places in Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio, Michigan, Maryland, we have high deer densities. And so what do we do? Well, a kill plot strategy, do we want to do kill plots? Do we want to do destination food sources? And again, I'm going to come to, I try to stay away from destination food sources if I can. I've had many, many clients where, we had to put in a destination food source. They had too many deer. They didn't have any surrounding ag. Those kill plots would have just got mowed down. So again, it really comes down to what your individual situation is. But for me, these small quarter acre, half acre kill plots work fantastic. And that's what you have to decide is when you're setting your priorities, food should be a really big priority, and whether it's big food or small kill plots is what you have to decide. So I'm a huge proponent of kill plots, but doesn't work for every property. Fortunately, I don't have a food plot over 3/4 of an acre in size on any of my properties, but I can get away with that. Some guys can't. So food, another really big thing. It's up there with cover. I'd say cover's number one that you really need to set your priorities, but food being number two. All right, so let's go to next slide. Okay, I talked about this a little bit already. You see you got the big destination food sources, and and I got the little, this is a a quarter acre kill plot. Have had tremendous success on it. I like this a lot better, but whether you can do that or not really depends on the things I already talked about. But for me, I just feel those small kill plots make it way easier for me to get the deer to go where I want them to go. And number two, it makes it easier for me to kill them. They're not at the end of a 4-acre bean field feeding on the other end that night, and then I got to get out of that stand and have a real high chance of scaring deer out of those destination food sources. So small kill plots, the way it works on mine is these deer will come in, they'll hit it in daylight hours, and then by the time it's dark, they've already moved on, they're out to the destination source, and I can get in and out of my plots many, many times with no deer being in the plot. So again, the kill plot strategy works for me. It's very effective on my property, but there is a time and a place, and that's what you have to determine. And if you sat down and you look and you said, my goal is to hold and shoot big mature deer, and you have no ag and you have no food, you're probably going to have to plant some destination food sources. All right, this is going to ruffle some feathers. I know it is. And I tell this with all my clients. Almost everyone will ask me, they'll say, hey, should I put water holes in? And again, I'm talking from mainly the Northeast. And when I'm in New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, most places I'm at, there's an abundance of water on the property. So when I'm looking at the grand scheme of things, of the importance of what I'm going to spend my time and energy and effort on, is water holes the best use of my time? I used to say to clients, hey, putting in water holes won't hurt you, but I don't know that it's necessarily really going to help you that much either. With that being said, I've kind of changed a little bit as times went on. I feel that they can potentially hurt you. We'll talk EHD. EHD has become more and more prevalent here in the Northeast, and it's a great way to spread EHD. But then I even think, there's guys that are going in and they're having to clean up their water holes. They're putting water in them. It's that impact they're having on the property, having to maintain that water source. And one of the best things I ever learned with mature bucks is just staying out of the property. So I was on several properties. One in Virginia last year, they didn't have water for 2 miles. Well, guess what? We put in like 4 water holes on food plots because that's going to be a huge attraction for those deer. But for me, in the grand scheme of things, I would say this. If you have a lot of water on your property, I don't know that a water hole in your food plot necessarily is going to hurt you other than maybe things I talked about, but I don't know it's the best use of your time. And I hope that makes sense. I'm not telling you not to do it, but I'm not sitting here saying, hey, you need to get water holes all over your property too, because I've been doing really well and I have 0 water holes on my property, but I have a stream, I have a pond. I mean, there's lots of places for these deer to get a drink, so I just don't feel it's the best use of my time. So that's my opinion on water holes. I know that'll ruffle some guys' feathers. I get guys, well, I have a water hole in my plot and the deer come and drink it all the time. And I always say, okay, that's all well and good, but were they coming there for the food? And maybe they went and got a drink of water, and I don't know, but for me, when you're setting your priorities and you're looking, if you have a lot of water on your property, it's definitely lower on the list. If you have no water on your property, then absolutely you got to move it up the list. But for most properties that I'm on, they have an abundance of water, so water holes for me just aren't real high up on the priority list. Okay, this is one I love, and this will definitely ruffle some feathers. Late season thermal cover, right? I think a lot of guys out there watch a lot of YouTube videos, and next thing I know, I saw a guy the other day, he was planting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pine trees, and I'm just like, my opinion of pines and things like that are really considered late season thermal cover. When I look at it, if you have a smaller property, a 70 to a 250, 300 acre piece, even like mine, I feel like everybody tries to be all things to the deer, and you don't have enough property to be all things to the deer, right? And what I mean by that is you have food, cover, late season cover, late season food sources, destination food sources, water holes. You're not going to, generally, unless you have 1,000 acres, are you potentially going to be all things to all deer. So for me, what I've done, I've taken a really logical approach. This has been my approach over the years, is I got to look at and say, okay, how can I build my habitat to be the very best that these big bucks want to be here from July until the end of December. And after December, I don't care where they go in January, February, March. I've never been through the woods in 53 years. I've never been through the woods and seen a huge die-off from starvation of deer. They have plenty to eat where we live. I'm not concerned about late season thermal cover, because you got to think of things. If you have a smaller property, it's 70 acres, you say, okay, I'm going to keep this 4 acres over here for late season thermal cover. I'm like, well, that's really good real estate that you could probably be doing something else with. You could have much better uses for your property than late season thermal cover. Again, I come down to, I'm just not concerned where the deer go in January and February. I want the deer to be where I want them to be when I can hunt them. And I hope that makes sense. And I don't want to sound like I'm not a conservationist either, and I don't care about the deer. I do know that there's lots of neighboring property around me that they have lots of thermal cover and late season food sources. But when I look at my property, it is all about really September, October, November. I want to build my cover to be around that they're going to be there that time. I want to build my food sources around that. I want to build everything around that, man, those big bucks are going to want to be in my area at that time of year when I can hunt. And I'm just not concerned about that late season stuff, because I think guys watch too many YouTube videos and they see where this guy's talking about this and they think, oh yeah, man, I want to do that on my property. But when you really logically think of it and you have limited real estate to work with, then it's just not, in my opinion, the best use of your real estate to say, hey, we're going to devote all this to late season thermal cover. So again, just my opinion on that. Now, if you have 1,000 acres, heck yeah, man, we're going to have all of it. We're going to try and make that property that, man, there's, deer can live there 95% of the year and have everything that they need. But if you got, 50 acres to 300, man, you really got to start looking at it from a different lens and a different perspective. All right, so I hope all that makes sense. I know that was a lot of information. I think we could break each one of those down and talk about them way more in depth than I probably will. But I hope you enjoyed that. I know I probably ruffled some feathers. And I'll tell guys, here's the deal. If you're looking at, you're some guy, how you would do this in Iowa is different than how you would do it in the Northeast. And in the Northeast, I really feel like I do have it down, and the best way to manage these properties, whether they're big, whether they're small, whatever they are, but it's taking a logical approach. It is determining what is capable, what is possible with your property, what you can actually accomplish, and then setting your goals. What are realistic goals? My cameraman's hacking up a lung back there. But what are realistic goals for your property? And realistic is the main word. Then once you have those goals set, then develop your whole property around that. So hopefully that all made sense. If you're looking, again, I talked about this earlier, but if you're looking to have a guy like me out, I'm booking property consults. My phone number is 717-304-2770. And my email is jason@magnetoutdoors.com. And lastly, Habitat Chat, go to our website, click that. You can see all of our Habitat Chats on there. And I hope you enjoyed this. We got another good one. I think next week we just kicked off a new product. called Sidekick, which is specifically for nurse crops. So I think next week what I'm really going to break down is a step-by-step. I've got a lot of questions from guys. Okay, how does a nurse crop work? What's the uses? What's the benefits? So I think I'm going to really break down exactly how I implement nurse crops here in the next one. But hope you enjoyed priorities. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out, and we'll see you on the next Habitat Chat.